everyone. Tonight's devotion is called Keep Moving Forward. Now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Jesus Christ, and because you belong to him, the power of the life-giving Spirit has freed you from the power of sin that leads to death. Romans 8:1-2. When we break free from fear, the enemy will often try to make us feel ashamed or upset about the ways we once allowed fear to control us. Absolutely. I've been through that, and so have lots of other people. We let fear keep us from doing something fun. We even let fear keep us from doing something for God, and at the time, it seems perfectly reasonable. Author and activist Christine Caine once said something that I find really relatable. So often we are paralyzed by the fear of missing God's will. We literally do not move because we are waiting for 10 confirmations. Here's the deal. Most times, you are going to have to step out in faith to find out if it's God. God is big enough to redirect you if you're wrong. Once we get out from under fear's control, though, we realize we didn't escape something frightening. We missed out on opportunities to have fun and to serve God. We realize how crazy fear is, and we find ourselves filled with regret over our fear-based decisions. We can even allow those regrets to hold us back from doing other things. If we're not careful, we might stop being a slave to fear and end up being a slave to shame and regret instead. These are real struggles, but we have to remember that walking with God will set us free, not only from fear, but also from regret, shame, and anger. When we embrace the new life Jesus offers us, we can say, "Okay, Lord, I'm sorry I let fear run my life for so long. I'm sorry I missed out on some great opportunities that came my way. But I believe shame, regret, guilt, anger, and every other negative emotion and lie of the enemy were dealt with at the cross. You died to set me free, not just from sin and death, but also from these feelings of condemnation. Don't look back. Keep moving forward into the freedom Jesus died to give you. Don't let fear hold you back from the amazing life he has planned for you." Amen. Holy Father, through the sacrifice of Jesus, you offer me a new life. I receive that life now, Lord, and all the freedom that comes with it. Lead me and guide me. Amen. This one feels like it spoke right into my soul. In some previous videos here, I spoke about how I lived in fear a lot of my life. I let fear dictate, what I did, if I had fun, if I wanted to go somewhere. Really just completely controlled my life. Because with that fear and anxiety comes feels like you're trapped. Like you can't get away from being fearful or being anxious or whatever it might be. Because fear of the unknown, fear of embarrassment, fear of just all of the things that, anxiety comes from. Anybody with anxiety knows that it comes from a lot of things, and that's one of the frustrating things about it. And a lot of times, it's not just anxiety, it'll also lead to depression because you feel like you're not living a fulfilling life and you're unhappy because you can't do the things that you want to do because you're allowing fear to control you. And I speak about that from experience. I lived that. And it's not a fun place to be. But you can make the choice to change that. It's not easy. It takes a lot. It's scary. And the biggest thing is you need to begin to let go of your fear in small ways. I had a very hard time with that because for me, letting go of fear was scary. So you see, it's like a vicious cycle. So you want to do something about it, but you're afraid to do something about it because it's new. Because it's different, because you don't know what'll happen, you don't know what you'll be like, any of those things. So it just perpetuates itself. she said something in here. I'm going to reread it here quickly. She said, "We literally do not move because we are waiting for 10 confirmations." So that's the first one I want to talk about. I am the queen of, God, will you show me a sign? Will you show me if what I'm doing is right? Give me just an inkling of if I'm on the right path, if I'm making the right choice. All of those things, you know, when I'm trying to make a decision or I'm stressing out about something, I'm the queen of show me a confirmation. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, but like she said, 10 is a little excessive. Most of the time, I'm good with 1. Sometimes if it's a big thing, I'll need 1 or 2. Working on that, work in progress. The next line here is, here's the deal. Most times, you're going to have to step out in faith to find out if it's God. In a previous video, I've talked about my goals. And my goals are to be more faithful, have more faith in God and God's plan, and to let go of the reins and say, you're steering this bad boy. We're going to go wherever you want, and I'm just going to trust that where I end up is where you want me. And that's terrifying because, like I said before, you're letting go of that control. And if you're anything like me, letting go of that control is not easy because that means scary. That means all of the unknowns that we don't like to think about, we don't like to deal with, we don't want any part of. But I learned the hard way that that's not life. It's not life to live fearfully. It's not life to not enjoy things because you're anxious. It's not life to be anxious about what if I make a mistake and now I'm embarrassed. You know what? So what? So you're embarrassed. You're going to get over it. And embarrassment isn't the end of the world. I hate being embarrassed. That is, I will say hate when I use that word. I use it very sparingly. But that is one thing that I will use that word on. I absolutely hate being embarrassed. Because with that comes shame. Because I feel like I didn't measure up. And now I feel shame about that because I should have been able to do better. I should have this, that, the other. You know, I go through the list in my head of all the things that I should have, XYZ, should have done, should have known, all of it, because I wasn't good enough. And then I just beat myself down. Another thing I'm working on, confidence in myself, speaking positively to myself, and not doubting myself, because I do all of those things. And I need to get better at not doing that, because if I'm negative to myself, how am I ever going to see things positively? How am I ever going to, encourage myself to do things? You're not. You're going to continue to beat yourself down, and you're going to continue to need other people to lift you up and build you up, which are good things. We all need people that have our backs and build us up and compliment you, but you have to be able to find that within yourself too, because there's not always going to be somebody to do that for you. And being self-sufficient is freeing. That is how I got control of my anxiety. I took life by the neck, and I decided that I was going to be as self-sufficient and independent as possible, which means I had a lot of learning to do. But if anybody that knows me knows anything about me, I love to learn. So that wasn't scary for me. That was exciting because now I get to learn things. I love learning. I love asking questions. I didn't like to ask questions in high school because why? Because I had teachers that would make you feel stupid if you didn't know an answer. So circle back to what I don't like, what I hate is being embarrassed. So I didn't ask questions, which means I didn't learn, because in order for me to learn, I need to be able to ask questions. But now moving on and growing and understanding myself better and understanding that you can't learn unless you ask questions, and it's okay to not know. because in my brain, I had it so twisted that I had to know. But how are you going to know if you don't ask? It was a whole thing. We'll just leave it at that. I won't go into that whole thing now. But I've had a lot of struggles with that in my life, thinking that I needed to be, top notch and know everything. And that if I didn't know everything, then clearly I was lacking and I was stupid. I, couldn't learn. There was something wrong with me. All of the negativity that you can think of, probably said it to myself. And I shouldn't have. Instead of, I should have said, I'm learning. That's what I'm here for. You're the teacher. You're supposed to answer the questions when I ask and not make me feel stupid for not knowing. But I didn't, because I was a very different person back then. So back to this. It says, God is big enough to redirect you if you're wrong. That, for me, was probably the biggest takeaway for this devotion. And there's another one I'll read in a minute. The reason that that's such a huge takeaway for me is because I am terrified that I'm going to make a wrong move, make a wrong choice. I heard God incorrectly. I messed up and made a mistake, and I missed what I was supposed to do, and now I've screwed everything up. The plan's ruined. Because I'm a perfectionist, so I like to get things right the first time. So that's a struggle that I live with every day, is telling myself, you're not going to be able to perfect it. You're not going to be able to always know. And that's okay, because like they said, God is big enough to redirect you if you're wrong. And I need to remember that in life, because they said earlier in the devotion, we oftentimes get so afraid that we don't move at all. And that hits for me really deep, because I get stuck because I'm afraid, because I don't want to make a mistake, because I want so badly to do what God wants and to follow his path for my life, because I know that whatever he's got for me is way better than anything I or anyone else could plan. So because I want my life the way that God's got it planned so bad, I'm so scared to trip up and make a mistake and, oh, now the whole plan's ruined. Well, duh. Are you serious? Like, I'm just me. God's God. Like, he'll fix it. He always can make an end around and a U-turn or whatever it might be, and he'll put the pieces back together. And as long as you're making an effort, I have to believe that God's going to meet you halfway. Probably even more than halfway. He'll probably meet you 70% of the way, as long as you're given like a solid 30. You know what I mean? I feel like if you're honestly trying, that he'll meet you where you are, and he'll just yank you along and say, come on, we're getting there. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. So I need to remember that. Let me quickly find the other one I want to read here. Here we are. Okay. It says, these are real struggles, but we have to remember that walking with God will set us free not only from fear, but also from regret, shame, and anger. Those three things very, very clearly describe the life that I lived probably 5 years ago. I was constantly feeling shame, regret over decisions I'd made because I couldn't forgive myself, shame over decisions I'd made because I couldn't forgive myself, and the last one here was anger. Anger was huge for me. I was angry that I felt like my life was falling apart, and I couldn't do anything to fix it. And you know what the problem was? The problem was I was trying to fix it, instead of taking God's hand that he always has outstretched for us, waiting for us to just grab it, and saying, I'm tired. I need help. I can't do this myself. Walk with me. And when that clicked, which, mind you, it took years for that to click. It took a lot of first working within myself on the big problems, the ones that you could look at and say, whew, you better work on that one, girlfriend, because holy buckets. The big ones that are obvious. Getting those under control and managed. And then comes the next part where now you bring out your magnifying glass and you say, okay, let's take a little bit of a closer look. Let's dive deep and see what else there is we need to fix. And so I did that. And I worked on those things, and that was hard because who really wants to look at themselves really close? It's not fun because you have to be honest with yourself and you have to admit that there's things wrong with you that you have to fix. And so I did that, and I still continue to do that. And now I'm moving into the next phase of get out the microscope, man, and let's take a look at all the other things that are really, really, really tiny that you need to tweak still, that you need to fix. More of a fine-tuning type of situation. For people who have vehicles, think of it like a build, okay? You start out with this hunk of junk, and you can see all the things that are clearly wrong with it, right? Rusted out body, horrible interior, hole in the floor. You can see the ground when you drive. Obvious things you gotta fix, right? So you get those fixed. Now, it's the next phase, which is the tires are kind of crap. I need new ones. Probably should put some paint on it because it's junky and the paint's all wore out. So we fix those things. Maybe some new taillights, new headlights. Fix up the trim maybe, depending on. Now it looks pretty good, right? No more holes, good paint, looks really, really spiffy. But some of the things we forgot were under the hood. So take a deeper dive and, maybe my AC doesn't work. Maybe my heater doesn't work. And, maybe it needs a new tensioner pulley. Just tiny things that you can run with them broken, but when they're fixed, everything runs so much smoother. So that's kind of how I see things, and how I look at them. So I just challenge you to think about things that make you fearful in life. And then I also challenge you to start looking at yourself on a broad spectrum. Look for the big things. And if you've already done that and you're already through that phase, I challenge you to move to the next one and the next one, depending on where you are. The way that I feel is that you're never done working on yourself. And if you say you are, you're full of baloney. That's how I feel. Because there's always room for growth, especially in an ever-changing world. So those are my 26 years worth of wisdom for you. I guess that's what I have for tonight. I hope that you guys enjoyed this content. If you have any questions, if you want to say something privately, you can go ahead and hit me up in my email or leave a comment below. All up to you. My email is nightlydevotions14@gmail.com. And then, of course, as always, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell, and it will tell you every night when I upload, or close to every night, when I upload a devotion, and you can tune in and listen to me gab for 20 minutes. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.